So today I'm going to review a couple of Ross MacKenzie books, the Nowhere Emporium and the Elsewhere Emporium, the follow-up. Now, these books are books I've read in the last couple of weeks, and I've got mixed feelings on the two, if I'm honest. The Nowhere Emporium, the first book in the series, I must say, was probably top 3 or 4 books I've read all year. I absolutely loved this. The layers of complexity in this book were amazing. The plot was absolutely gripping. The characters were fascinating, and I was absolutely desperate to find out what was happening next. It was so clever. The sort of concept, it was really, really clever and really unique. Unlike any book I'd read recently, the concept of being able to write something down in a book and it happening in real life and it creating all sorts of wonders. We had heroes, we had villains, we had a sort of thick plot where we were desperate for good to prevail over evil. It was a book that I was hooked on, and it's a book that I was page turning continuously. I finished reading this, and as I say, I think I tweeted out that this was sort of had top 3 or 4, top 5 books I've read, maybe ever. I absolutely loved it. So I went straight on to the follow-up. I went on to the Elsewhere Emporium, which was a recent release this year by Ross MacKenzie. And I had really high hopes, but I must say this was a book I dragged myself through a little bit. I liked the fact that the same characters, or many of the same characters, remained. I thought that was really interesting. And we'd already invested heavily in those in the first book. But I must admit, the plot here was slightly confusing and slightly less... it's hard to think of the right word. It was just slightly less... I was slightly less sort of invested in it than the Nowhere Emporium. I think I just didn't really enjoy it in quite the same way. It was lovely to... It was lovely to sort of revisit some of the older concepts, and as I say, we did have characters from the first book coming back into it, which was interesting. But I felt slightly disappointed reading this one, and did actually find it harder to get through than some of the books I've read recently. It was only a quick video. I just wanted to have a little mention of those couple of books. I think they both have some really brilliant descriptive language. They build on the power of magic, the idea of imagination. They talk about dreams. There's themes talking about parental loss, obviously good v bad or good v evil. There's the concept of breaking free of your situation and sort of evolving into any life that you could want or have, and not being sort of confined by your upbringing or your circumstance. And it did have some links to The Greatest Showman in some of the sort of magic, imagination, sort of even some circus themes in the Elsewhere Emporium. So it was good. The first one was amazing. The second one, not so good. But as a whole, really enjoyed that little series by Ross MacKenzie. Just a short, snappy video. Hope you've enjoyed it, and would love to hear anyone's thoughts. Cheers, guys.